Thank you for being here today. I know this is one of those, do I stay or do I go, right? I understand these mornings, and I want to greet those of you watching online. I noticed our online was a little uptick this morning. Matt and I talked about it. I don't know what it is. Lord, how long will these kind of smaller 1-inch, 2-inch storms have a way of arriving somewhere between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Sundays? That's wonderful. So it's great when you're up with Matt at 5:30 and he goes out onto his deck, I go onto my deck, and we're like, what are we doing? We're not meteorologists. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I recognize some of you have told me you had a little adventure getting here depending on where you came from the county. So obviously everybody makes that call. And then, am I right? I'm hearing next week, same thing? Second verse, same as the first. We'll get there next week. So I'm going to let somebody else make it. Jim, you want to make the call next week? Okay, Jim, you're the man. I'm going to call you 5:15 Sunday morning. You'll be ready? Tom, jump in there and take that from Jim. We will see. But if you weren't here last week or the week before, we have gotten back into the Gospel of Mark. So I just wanted to give you really big picture stuff here. Mark is the book, it's the second book of the New Testament. It's the shortest of what we might call sort of the mini biographies of Jesus. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Most scholars think Mark is the original. It's the oldest, and it's an action-packed gospel. So we started it several years ago. We do several chapters at a time. We just picked it up again a couple of weeks ago in Mark 14, and I just wanted to say this, because I want you to notice in the coming weeks, up to, Lord willing, Easter Sunday, which I think is April 5th this year. Boy, it's nice to think about April. The action slows down. Like, we are already finding ourselves in the last really 7 days of Jesus' life, starting in 14. And this is going to take us in all the way to the end of the 16th chapter. Most of that time is going to be focused on the last, are you ready? 12 hours of Jesus' life. And I think we'll see why most of the ink that Mark spills was saved for that section. So today, we have a passage that is probably familiar to many of you if you grew up in the church, even if you weren't really invested in the church, depending on your background, you've probably heard this, you've seen it portrayed in movies and shows, etc. It's the famous sort of what we would call the communion passage. Depending on your background, you might say the Eucharist passage or the Lord's table. And you all know the old adage, right? Familiarity breeds contempt, right? Maybe. I found in my own experience it tends to breed apathy. The more familiar you are with something, the less you care. And the less you care, the less you notice. So I'm really praying as I'm preaching, and I hope you will pray too as you're listening. Lord, show us something, because I've really this week had some things speak to me, and they might not be the same thing. Sometimes the same passage speaks to people differently, but I hope something will leap up and grab you. This is a profound passage when we understand what's happening in the background and how it affects Jesus, how it affects us. Let's go right there. Chapter 14, verse 12. On the first day of unleavened bread, when they sacrificed the Passover lamb, his disciples said to him, "Where will you have us go and prepare for you to eat the Passover?" And we talked about that a little bit this last week. This is the huge week in the Jewish calendar year. The Passover is sort of the proper one-day feast. It's really a meal. It's a dinner, as we're going to see in just a moment. Unleavened bread is the week around that period. So sometimes they're used interchangeably. Sometimes they're used in conjunction. We see that in all the gospel used a little bit differently. But if you don't know much about ancient Israel's history, the signature moment, the big moment, right? Like if we think of our country's big moment, you might go American Revolution, or a closer runner-up might be the Civil War, right? Or a moment within those things. The big moment in Israel's national history is the Exodus event, the rescue of the Israelites from slavery under a cruel despot, a cruel Pharaoh. And they were rescued in a very dramatic way, and a lamb for each Jewish household was sacrificed And the blood of that sacrifice was painted on their doorposts. Those who had that painted on the doorpost did not experience the judgment of God that struck the households of the Egyptian. It's serious stuff. That's why it's called the Passover. The angel of death passed over those Jewish homes. Just wanted to land us in this so we understand what's happening. So by Jesus' day, think about this, for millennia now, or for a millennium essentially, we have a sacred meal that is passed on generation after generation, where children would learn what happened on that night, and they would share the Passover meal. So every Jewish pilgrim family is flooding the streets of Jerusalem on Passover week. That's what sets up this meal and Jesus' last week. So just to see how this is rooted in ancient scripture, second book of the Bible, the book of Exodus, we read this: your lamb shall be without blemish, a male, a year old, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. That's known as the month of Nisan, which is kind of in our calendars would be March, April, a fusion of the two, when the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill their lambs. And notice, at twilight, the turning of the day. So late afternoon, just at the first sign of dusk, the Paschal lambs are slaughtered, and the Passover meal would be taken by so many Jewish families celebrating this together. The disciples are saying, Jesus, we got to do this thing. You're a pretty spiritual guy, right? Where are we going to do this Passover meal? Let's see how this story plays out. And he sent two of his disciples and said to them, go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. Now, I'll be honest, when I first read that, I make questions when I look at a text throughout the week, and I'm like, okay, it seems like there'd be another distinguishing characteristic. There's a dude with a water jar. Can you give me more? Right? Is he a tall guy? Is he a skinny guy? Maybe he's got a colored belt to distinguish him from some of the other folks. And this is where the commentators that I normally check in later can often be helpful. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I just wanted to share my aha moment. William Lane, who I've relied on heavily, he's just brilliant commentator, said the reference to a man carrying a jar of water who was to be followed to a house suggests a prearranged signal. For ordinarily, only women carried water in jars. Now, every woman here says, of course, right? Of course, that's how it would be. And sadly, it was. That was considered, quote unquote, women's work. The women are carrying the jars for the family. If you remember that famous story in John chapter 4, Jesus meets the woman at the well of Sychar, an old well with Old Testament significance, because she's going there, as all the women in the village did, to bring back the water for the family's use that day. The distinguishing characteristic is it's a dude. You're going to see a guy carrying a jar of water. That's going to stand out. And that should be a clue that this whole process is going to fall in place like dominoes. Let's see how it continues. And wherever he enters, say to the master of the house, the teacher says, where is my guest room? Which would seem pretty presumptuous, pretty pretentious, right? Where is my guest room, the teacher says, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room furnished and ready. There, prepare for us. Notice the script, how it's laid out. Well, look how it works in execution. We'll follow along. And the disciples set out and went to the city and found it just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover. Now, if you remember or you've looked at the Gospels before in any sense, the story might sound faintly familiar, does it? Sort of I'm going to send two disciples in. There's going to be some clues. It's almost like a little adventure story, right? I could imagine kids having fun with this. If, our kids workers today took them in the parking lot. Don't worry, parents, we're not doing that. Where they wandered through the air park back here and said, if you see a person with a yellow hat, ask them this. It's kind of a strange thing. We're used to seeing it, but Jesus has done this before. You remember? He did it on Palm Sunday. You have to go back 3 chapters. The very first moment he enters the city. Said, now when they drew near to Jerusalem, Jesus sent, here it is again, 2 of his disciples and said to them, go into the village and you will find a colt, untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, why? You say, the Lord has need of it. Again, William Lane's observation is helpful here. The effect of both stories, the Passover story we're in today and the Palm Sunday story, the effect of both is to show Jesus' knowledge, and I love this, complete governance of events as his hour of death approaches. So here's something I wrote down this week. And I thought I'll just leave this in because I think it pivots us well. Jesus is not caught in the gears of history. He's walking a chosen path in the will of God. The meal that we're going to commemorate at the end of our time today is not us looking back on a poor, unfortunate man caught in the machinery of an unfortunate, accidental set of circumstances. That happens sometimes in life, and we do have pity. We do remember somebody who just walked into something, they were ambushed, somebody who thought they were going to see a friend and were in a horrible car accident. We do have those moments, and I think it's important that we distinguish here. This script, I want you to go here, I want you to go there, I want you to go there, then you're going to see this, is all what? This is the prelude to the most unthinkable 12 hours that a human being could face. The arrest, the punches, the blows that landed on his body, the makeshift crown of thorns to mock him as a bogus king, the scourging on his back, the spit, the insults, the nails, the agonizing, the spear. Oh, and as we'll see next week, most of all, bearing the full consequences of our sin and the concomitant judgment that should fall on us for those sins. That's what he's facing. And I'm freshly fascinated by the fact that if I were facing that, I don't know if I could muster up enough strength to open my eyes in the morning and put my feet down on the floor. And here is Jesus knowing, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and they're going to be waiting for me. They're going to be this is all part of the script, and he is at the center of it. Jesus is not the unfortunate victim. He is the purposeful, intentional Savior that faces his mission with clarity and with purpose. And I think that's worth noting. So let's see how the meal plays out. When it was evening, he came with the 12, and as they were reclining at table and eating, Jesus said, and it's shocking, this is the first thing that we get from him, "Truly I say to you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." Ooh. I mean, the Passover, while it has some somber elements, is largely a celebratory meal, isn't it? It commemorates not their judgment, but their rescue, their vindication in the presence of their enemies. This is a happy time. To this day, when Jewish families all over the world celebrate this, this is largely a time for rejoicing, a time to remember that God is for them and good. And in the middle of that, Jesus kind of, can we be honest, throws a huge wet blanket on this celebration. One of you will betray me. Now, every so often, I'll read a commentator or scholar who suggests, I understand why, particularly if you just stay with Mark's gospel, that Jesus knows that he's going to be betrayed, but not who is going to betray him. So let's tease that out for a little bit. Maybe Jesus knows that he's going to be betrayed, but the identity of one of those 12, he doesn't know. Maybe he's guessing a little. Peter sometimes is kind of brazen, and then he cowers back. James and John seem to have a feud. Maybe there's a little something there. Maybe he's guessing. I want to just kind of slay the suspense of that this morning and say that I think if we look at John's parallel account, I think he tells us plainly that he knows it's Judas. I'll show you that in John 13. It says, "For he," that is Jesus, "knew who was to betray him." To me, that's pretty plain. Not that he was going to be betrayed, but who. That's why he said, "Not all of you are clean." That's something he says in John 13. Meaning he's aware that one of them is, we might say today, the mole, right? spy, the double agent. I mean, that's essentially what Judas is. We saw that last week. He's already making arrangements behind the scenes with the religious leaders to get Jesus caught, arrested, and then tried and executed. Why does Jesus in Mark speak cryptically, anonymously? One of you will betray me. I think it's to set up the appropriate response of everybody at the table. And think about it. It's a fascinating response. Let's go back and look at verse 19. They began to be sorrowful. They have a heaviness of heart, a heaviness of spirit, and say to him one after another, is it I? Is it I? Is it I? Is it I? And the more I keep thinking about that, I think how fascinating. Because, I mean, right? Peter knows he hasn't made some prior arrangement with the religious leaders to off Jesus. Matthew certainly knows he's not been behind the scenes, even though he's got good connections with the Romans. He used to work for them. He was a tax collector. He hasn't done any such thing. He has no plans. But every single one of them is are you talking about me? Are you talking about me? Are you talking about me? Isn't that interesting? And I think Jesus, I'm going to submit this to you for you to consider, does this anonymously because it creates a culture of invitation and introspection. And I'm always reminded of a hymn that I don't know if we sing. It's a little antiquated, but it's a sweet hymn. Some of you know it. It's called Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. And every time I sing that hymn, I have a hard time getting past one line. I bet some of you, I see some of you nodding, might know what it is. It's the confession of my own weakness. And we say it like this: prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. I do. Prone to leave the God I love, and I have. And then there's this, Lord, here's my heart, oh, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above. It's an admission that I carry within me my own inner traitor. And Jesus could so easily disabuse 11 men of that notion, but he doesn't. He says, one of you betray me. And it seems every one of them seems talking about me. Why? Because deep down we know, whether we admit it or not, I'm capable of it. Right? I don't understand myself. I don't understand how one day I'm singing songs, my hands are lifted, I mean every word of it. I feel so close to Jesus. And then a day or two later, I'm torching a relationship. I'm speaking to somebody unkindly, right? I'm bitter, I'm angry, I'm petty, I'm vindictive. Like, Lord, how did I get here when I was just there? And at this dinner, Jesus is inviting that introspection. Is it I? So I wrote this down too, and it just has stayed with me all week. The right question is not which guy is the betrayer. That's always external. That makes us feel better about it. It's not me. The question is, could it be me? That there should be a healthy self-suspicion of our own fickle nature. And I'm reminded as well that King David's experience centuries before this prefigures that of the true king, the Messiah. And this text is often associated with Jesus. I think you'll see why. Look at Psalm 41, verse 9. Even my close friend in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted his heel against me. That lifted his heel against me is an ancient Hebrew idiom that essentially would mean something today like stab me in the back. You know, or I hear that guy hosed me, right? It was a turncoat. They stuck it to me when I wasn't looking. They sacked me. We have so many phrases that capture this, and I find it fascinating that Jesus knew that experience. I'll tell you. When I have experienced that, and I want to be very clear, I always want to say this: I have done it on the giving end, where I know I have betrayed someone that trusted me, and I have certainly received it, being betrayed by somebody I trusted. And I remember many, many years ago reaching out to, who many of you know, Dave Shive, He's been here and will be here again this week teaching an excellent core class on Wednesdays. And he was my senior pastor at a seminary the first 6 years I served in a church. And so I call him from time to time. I said, Dave, I'm kind of hurt, and this is why. And I remember him taking me to Psalm 41:9. And he said, Greg, what you're experiencing, I just want you to know, there's nothing I can say to take it away, but it is something that Jesus knows intimately. His good friend whom he trusted, who he broke bread with, lifted his heel against him. This is something, if you've experienced that, maybe some of you, Lord forbid, has experienced it in a marriage, experienced it in a deep friendship that you thought was going to last for life. You've experienced it. Your Savior knows that experience. He knows it. But notice he stays with the anonymity in verse 20. He said to them, it is one of the 12 who is dipping bread into the dish with me, which most commentators point out, well, in the course of that meal, that would have been all of that. Have you considered at some point, while Judas is the first guy to break, it doesn't take too many other guys much longer to betray him. I don't want to give too much of the story away. But Jesus is going to tell us that the shepherd will be struck and the sheep will be scattered. And eventually, in their own way, in their own time, they will all betray him. And some say, well, what about John, Greg? He stayed by. And he did. He did, and that should be noticed. He's the one that stayed by the cross. But the scriptures tell us, right? We can tell. He is silent. He is not identifying. He is not saying, this man is innocent. I was with him for 3 years. He doesn't deserve this. Stop it. None of that. He is there watching, and that's commendable. But every single one of them carries within them an inner Judas, and so do we. So Jesus says these sobering words in verse 21, for the Son of Man, and he's talking about himself now with the exalted title of the Messiah. This comes from the book of Daniel, Old Testament book. For the Son of Man goes, it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born. We enter in here with the paradoxical tension of the providence of God, his control of all things, but the independent agency of man. You say, well, which is it? I say, yes. And I cannot satisfy anyone's mind on that. This is scripted. This is part of what's supposed to happen. Judas, however, is independently, willfully choosing to do this. And Jesus is painting the somber picture of the cost of that betrayal. And now to the meal as we end. And there's not many words here, but every one of them. Wow, so important. And as they were eating, he took bread, and after blessing, he broke it and gave it to them and said, take, this is my body. And I want you to notice those verbs. There's these transitive verbs here. See, the took, blessed, broke, gave, invitational, take. This is the TLC moment, as it were. Jesus is doing something with this meal that is very, very clear. It's very minuscule. It's very particular. He wants them to see what he's doing, and his posture is to what? Give to them. And then he says, this is my body. This is shocking. We're used to it in church culture. I am too. So I'm trying to just put myself hearing that for the first time. This is my body. I would imagine many here, right? I think, isn't it this year? Yes, is the 250th year anniversary of the United States, right? And most people, all the survey shows, aren't really fans of flags being desecrated, right? Understandably, right? People often think of their relatives and their people that have fought in wars to protect the homeland, that have given of themselves at the ultimate price. And in 250 years of history, we have a lot of sacred nostalgia around our own history, right? Imagine the Passover meal, over 1,000 years old. And imagine this man saying, yes, let's not miss what he's doing. He is now infusing this ancient sacred tradition with new meaning. This is my body. Just imagine, right? If I were to come up here today, don't worry, I'm not going to take this too far, I promise you, and I held out these elements and say, you know, everybody, I think today I want to do something new with the meaning of these elements. I hope that I couldn't clock the corporate race to the back doors. I hope you would collectively put Usain Bolt to shame with your exit out of this room, and you would be right to do so. If I came up here and tried to infuse this with some kind of new meaning, hope you would say, Greg, that is blasphemous. You're just a dude with clay feet. What are you doing? This is why I'm so affected by the argument, and some of you have heard this, offered by the great British thinker C.S. Lewis, who said, we cannot accept this nonsense about not believing Jesus is the Son of God, but being a good teacher. He says he has not left that option to us. And he gives what some have called the trilemma, that you have to choose among three. He is either a liar who has no right to infuse the sacred tradition with new meaning and say this is ultimately fulfilled in what he's about to do as he dies on the cross. He's a liar, and he should pay the price for lying. That's an option based on what he said. You might say, well, he's misguided, but he's experiencing some kind of mental breakdown, and so use that term lunatic, right? He is a lunatic. He's not, we would say, in his right mind, but even though if he means it. You could conclude that. And the only other remaining option is he's exactly who he said he was. He's the Lord. He's a liar, he's a lunatic, or he's Lord. And here he is taking the sacred Passover meal and saying, this bread, this unleavened bread that you're used to and all of its traditions and all of its associations, I wanted to remind you of my body. That's the connection I want you to make from this point forward. Every other Passover meal they're going to have, which they're going to turn into its own meal, the Lord's Supper, I want you to think of me. It's astounding. Secondly, he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank of it, and he said to them, this is, and he does it again, my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. So we have to just linger there a little bit and say, wow, every time we take communion, we are participating in what was originally a radical, countercultural, shock and awe moment. Because Jesus is saying, all of this history, all of this ancient, beautiful, complex, intricate Jewish history is coming to a head. It was all a preview, and I am now here. And I am not a temporary rescuer like you experienced in Egypt, where you were rescued from earthly bondage. I am an eternal rescuer, and you are going to be rescued from sin and damnation and judgment and brought into my Father's family, where you will live forever. That's what he's saying. But perhaps lost in this is what he's not saying. He knows that one of them, even now, is chomping at the bit to get out of there and finish the deed and betray him. He also knows that these guys around the table are going to hit the road and disassociate from him and deny any connection with him. He is having dinner with cowards. He is having dinner with traitors. He is having his last meal with weak, fickle, vacillating losers. And he seems content with that. It is to those people he gives what? Not bread and wine, but himself, my body, my blood, his very self. I'm going to give it to you. But Lord, do you know what I know? Lord, I've done something. I know. Lord, I'm afraid what I might be capable of tomorrow. I know. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to give you all of myself. Better said, encapsulated in Jason Meyer's commentary, he says, Jesus does not wait until the disciples prove themselves worthy. He gives himself to them knowing full well what they will do. I don't have words for it. It just, there's no love like this. Even when we try to go the unconditional route. Are you like me? I'm still a little transactional. If I do something lavish and nice, I'd be lying to you if I said there's not some little expectation in the back of my mind. Ooh, what's going to come back my way? Jesus knows. Like he knows nothing's going to come back his way. Nothing's coming back to his benefit. Nothing. His pleasure is to do his Father's will, who sent him to do this. For who? Cowards and traitors and adulterers and backstabbers and thieves and liars. That's who he loves. That's what he gives himself for completely. That's why I am so confident that he loves me, because I'm not looking at my track record, thank God. I'm not looking at even my best aspirations, which I'm not going to fulfill. I'm just looking at him at this meal. And I'm just like every one of you. Is it going to be me? Is it going to be me? Am I going to deny? Yes. I will. You will. But he loves us the same. And notice what he tells us. He's aware this is the last time he's going to share a meal like this. He says, truly I say to you, I won't drink again of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God. We're going to see that on the cross, right? They're literally going to offer him wine mixed with myrrh as an little opportunity, a narcotic effect to deaden the pain. He'll refuse it. We'll see that. He'll refuse it. He knows when he's going to drink the cup again. It's going to be with all of us. Glorified, shining forever. A group of people that said, I was a traitor. I was a liar. I was a coward. He loved me anyway, brought me into his family, changed me from the inside out. And then to set up next week, and when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. I can tell you to a virtual certainty, I think I know what that hymn was. You can look at this yourself, consider it, but you could just do a little search today. It was Psalm 118, which the ancient rabbis tell us was the last psalm that would have been sung at the Passover. If you have some time today, you get 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just look up Psalm 118 and imagine the last words Jesus ever sang on this earth. Ooh, it'll touch you. I assure you it will touch you. So this takeaway thought for us today is that we are far more capable of betrayal than we think. I want you to sit with that. Me too. That's the bad news. We are. But we are far more loved than we fear. Far more loved than we could have ever imagined.